There's shows for free a week. But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications option. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatterspodcast1892@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true.
And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes us all believe.
Good evening, welcome along to NUFC Matters, and it is Ask George. Good evening, George.
Hello, Steve, and everybody else. Thanks for tuning in. Good to see you all.
Good stuff. I know you get a buzz when you say that, George. It is you're the only person who's got your own individual intro, which is quite good. You've earned it, mate. You've earned it. As always, your turn to ask the questions to George. I'm simply here to facilitate those questions, so make sure you get plenty in. I'm going to give the honour of the first question tonight to Stephen Kennedy, who emailed me at 11:07 this morning to say, George, having noticed in Wissa's time on the pitch since he joined, he seems to be weak on his left peg. And last night highlighted it even more. So, after the game, I decided to watch Wissa's season 24-25 goals back. And out of the 19 he scored, 2 left foot tap-ins and 1 bobbled in off his left knee. Could this, his left foot, be his Achilles heel, so to speak? What's your feelings on that, Joe?
Well, I have to say that that's an interesting take on him because... but there's a lot more to Wissa that bothers me than just his left peg, I've got to say. The number of times last night, for example, he was in no man's land between our penalty area and the halfway line, not marking anybody, not challenging anybody, just standing and looking. And I find that for a professional footballer a bit worrying. I find it doubly worrying that you've been able to, as a supporter, be able to pick out a weakness on one side. I mean, that's surely somebody in his previous club or this club will try and do something about that, because we've had our share of very, very one-footed players. Like Miggy Almiron was a great player, but he'd have been a fantastic player if he'd even been marginally better with his wrong peg. So I'm interested that you've been able to pick that up, and it doesn't help because he's struggling for form anyway, and if that means he's struggling and he's not confident on one side, his confidence is not going to go be helped by that. In fact, it'd be hindered. The other thing that I found quite depressing, it was the number of times he was unnecessarily, in my view, offside. I've gone on about one or two of our players about the peripheral vision, about not knowing where they are on the pitch and not knowing where everybody else is on the pitch. And last night there were 2 or 3 times or more he was caught offside when really all he had to be doing was looking along the lane. He's the only one there. For goodness sake, open your eyes and be aware where everybody is. I mean, we had this initially when our previous centre forward, who was, I'm not going to mention by name, but ended up in Liverpool. When he first came, he was the same, very regularly offside. And it was Dave Jones, the one of our assistant coaches, who seems to work with the strikers, who taught him to make diagonal runs. In other words, start your run behind the line and move onto the line and across the line instead of straight through the line. You know, if you're going to accelerate behind the line and then burst through it. So I hope that they're working on that. But I'm find your analysis of his of him being weak on his left side quite fascinating and quite slightly disturbing. I've got to say that your main striker's so basically one-footed. I mean, is quite worrying. But a good piece of analysis. I like that sort of thing. So thank you for that.
Yep, thanks, Stephen. Thank you for that. His second question was, and George, if Anthony Elanga is the answer, what the hell is the question? Oh,
goodness gracious. I hate being scathing about players, but at the moment with Anthony, you can't be anything else. He's just like he's just not in the box, is he? He's just so off everything. You want to urge him to run onto things, and he doesn't. You want him to track back, and he doesn't. The number of times odd times he does track back, and he gets the ball, and he can't hold it. It hits him and goes off to an opponent or off to one of ours if we're lucky enough. No, he's at the moment a bit of an enigma. I'm reluctant to go too far because I'm reminded why we bought him. Remember, Chris Wood last year scored over 20 goals as a centre forward, and the person that made most of those goals, because he had the most assists in the whole bloody Premiership, and that was Anthony Elanga. So that hasn't gone away. Don't lose that sort of ability. So I think Eddie and his team have got some work to do to remind him how good he is and has been. But you posed the right question. If he's the answer, what's the question? Well, it's a question I couldn't answer because he's just not in the box at the moment. He's just an enigma. When he comes on, he's a make weight. That's the best you can say. He's got to be. Sorry.
I've had time to watch the game back today, and it reiterates what I thought. And Elanga got, in his first couple of touches yesterday were more positive. He did get into some good positions. He did manage to control the ball, and he did manage to pass the ball to Newcastle United player basics. A couple of other times, I mean, he had a slip. A lot of our players seem to be slipping at the moment. I don't know what they're wearing on their feet, but they're akin to skates, not football boots. And Anthony Gordon had to change his boots last night. And I think it was around about the 93rd, 94th minute. Elanga came screaming in at the back post. He was there, and the ball just didn't get put across to him. And again, it was another chance that went begging. I think Elanga will come good. And that really is my answer.
I do too.
That's my answer to the question when somebody said, Paul, he said, George, do you think we'll ever see the Nottingham Forest version of Elanga? So you're the same as me. You do think we'll see it at some point?
Oh, yeah. It's just taken a bit longer than we anticipated. And I've got to say, when I talk about this, I retreat to our Neil's response to this, and that is, remember, they're not just footballers; they're human beings. Yes. He's gone through a major trauma of a very big transfer fee, a move with a young wife, and a first baby on the way when they were moving. Anybody that's moved house, you know how stressful that is. They had a baby into it as well, and plus, I gather that he's had some. Like other players have, he's had one or two security reasons, problems. So all of that added together can't exactly augur well for what happens on the pitch. But I'm still convinced that we've got a good player, and he will come good. On that security thing I mentioned, the number of our players that have had these problems, Trippier, Isaac. Joe Linton, I think Bruno's had it once. Why on earth the club don't come to some sort of deal with the security companies? So surely they're protecting assets worth hundreds of millions of pounds, not just the money and the jewellery, but the players themselves. Do you want a player injured, getting caught with a burglar in his house? I mean, it's just balmy to me. It just seems a bit of penny pinching.
I mean, I would imagine some of our, viewers and supporters would probably struggle though to understand why maybe the football club should do that. I mean, a lot of these players are getting money that we could only ever dream of. That some players make money that we probably only dream of making in 10 years. Never mind 1 week. And maybe they should be taking a bit of responsibility as well. I mean, I always groan when I hear a footballer. These footballers, they can't do anything for themselves. I mean, but listen, I get where you're coming from. I mean, obviously, we don't know 100% Elanga's been affected. We've heard stories and rumours about that. We know that Isaac certainly did, because it was front page news that people were arrested, tried, and convicted. But we know it's happened to other players. So yeah, look, they are humans, and I've got to be honest as well, Davey Eddie. I think you've come to a good conclusion there as well, because I turned and said this to people who I was at the match with last night. When he comes on, he does look like he's got the whole stadium on his shoulders, and he does look like he can't handle the pressure, and he does look like he's got no studs in his boots at times. But it's the pressure sometimes, and as much as that pressure, we think it's easy. It's not. Anyone who stood down, on the pitch, I've done it, thankfully, once or twice in my time covering Newcastle. They can tell you that atmosphere when the teams come out the tunnel. The two games I was pitch side when the teams came out the tunnel were Barcelona in the Champions League when Tino got his hat-trick, and the Sunderland 5-1 game. And that roar when the teams come out the tunnel and onto the pitch is, I tell you what, standing at the side of the pitch, it's now imagine that sound when it's moans, groans, and people shouting at you because you've miscontrolled a pass. And some players genuinely just can't cope with it.
Struggle.
Yeah, I think that's what he needs. I really do 100% think that's what he needs, a little bit of confidence. Golf and Geordie says, I agree, Elanga will come good, just needs our fans to show him the support that Newcastle is famed for. What about the signings, says Alexander Johnson on Facebook. We have a sign in the summer, the German player. And I'll add Alexander's comments to other people's comments as well that we've already had. Where was it? It'll come to me. Was it John Askew? I think it was. Yes, there it is. George, with reference to Ramsey and Elanga, it's likely that only one might prove value for money. Do you agree? I mean, look, our transfer window has been dissected more times than enough on here, but we know who we signed. Are you confident that the transfer window will be deemed a success by the time we get to the end of the season?
Yes, I think so. And I've got to say about Ramsey that every time he comes on, he looks better each time he comes on. The more game time he gets, he looks better and better. And it's worth remembering about him. He could be a useful lad, because when Aston Villa were short of people on the left and on the right, they sometimes used to play him, and he was quite effective. So I think I'm sure we would, if we were desperate, would be doing the same sort of thing. But as I say, the more I see him on the pitch, the more game time he gets, the better he gets. I was at the beginning starting to wonder whether, what was it the waste of money? Well, I'm convinced now it wasn't at all. I think it was because of his age, etc. I think in terms of the money he cost, I think they might turn out to be a very shrewd buy, and I don't think we'll lose on him. That's for sure if he was to move on. The other one, I make no secret of the fact that I'm a Voltemada fan. Anybody who watches some of the touches that he has, and that outside of the foot ball into Harvey Barnes to score that goal, it was class. I mean, that doesn't come from. That's not even a thing you can teach on the training ground. That's pure football skill. And one of the other two touches he does is good. Last night, he could have been the hero. I mean, he was literally within half an inch of scoring a header and another goal as well. But you know, that's the way things are at this level. It's all about margins and so on. The other thing about this business about them slipping and changing boots and all the rest of it, I noticed that we water the pitch a great deal, and you know, obviously the groundsman's there. He's possibly in discussion with that. He knows what he's doing, but it is noticeable that one or two have had slips. I mean, one of the slips where Chow gave the goal away was partly to do with the fact he ended up sitting on his backside instead of standing up. And I wonder how, you know, our pitch is one of the best in the country and one of the most modern. I mean, I don't think our fans realise that 30% of our pitch is plastic. They all think it's still just all grass, but 30% of it's plastic. It's not just plain grass like we used to know it. And of course, if you pass St James's Park at night, you can see the glow of the orange lights where they're growing the grass at night to keep it busy. So there are lots of things, but it has been noticeable in the last 2 or 3 games how many people have slipped over or changed their boots, etc. So that there's something happening anyway.
Yeah, Barry Hogan, good evening. Says, George, our wingers this season have been really poor. Gordon, Murphy, Alanga, and at times Barnes. Should we have a clear out and bring in fresh blood? Well, I mean, Alanga's just arrived, but the other 3 have been here a considerable amount of time.
And you know, Harvey Barnes in the last 3 games has kind of welded himself into a place, I think. I mean, goodness gracious, how many goals has he scored? But not only that, he's been a thorn in the side of the opposition, and I think we look a lot better when he's on one side and Gordon's on the other. Anthony Gordon's, to me, is he has it in him to destroy defences if he you know, gets the opportunity, if he puts his mind to it. So I'm not entirely in agreement with the fact that they've been awful. They've had their moments, but what we want is more moments that are more positive from both. But I think Harvey Barnes in the last 2 or 3 games has kind of shown that there's a place in that side for him, even just as a goal scorer. I mean, he's not the biggest bloke in the world, and yet he manages to get the odd-headed goals as well. So, you know, there's a footballer in Harvey Barnes. There's no doubt about that, and I think we can get the best out of him, or at least Eddie can get the best out of him.
Yeah, okay. Get your questions in. Interesting one from Blue Rhythm Boy. Did George or Steve buy any retro 95 kit or training wear? I didn't. Got to be honest, I had a good look at it, and I'm not convinced that it's the best. I think the original was better, if I'm perfectly honest. Have you bought any of that purple, white, and black stuff?
No, it's simply for the same reason. I think the original's better in lots of senses, including quality, I have to say, which surprised me, especially as it's Adidas that's produced it, because their stuff's normally the top notch. But I prefer the old stuff. So no, I haven't bought anything. I may soften and get something. I don't buy an awful lot, but what I do buy, I buy you know, for personal choice, and very little else. But I've got one modern home strip which I like, but and my favourite strip, of course, is the first green and white strip that they brought out. I bought that instantly, largely in defiance of those that were berating Saudi Arabia. That was me saying, sod off.
John Askew says, Tino, Hall and Miley are undoubtedly the future of our club and they should receive contract extensions. Do you think the club will see it that way?
Oh, I'd be very disappointed if they didn't. Well, aren't they talking to Tino now? I had a feeling that they were talking to Tino alongside Botman. And the only thing that's interrupted it is the fact he's been injured. So I had the feeling they were already talking to Tino, because isn't there whispers in the background of last night's opponents desperate to sign him? And if that's true, then let's get him signed up as quick as we can. Hall's got to be a shoe-in. I mean, his display last night, it was disgraceful for a lad like that to be on the losing side. He gave everything, not just at fullback, but when he cut inside, he was dangerous. The number of times that City chopped him down, how one of their players wasn't red carded, or at least yellow carded, for some of the things they did to Lewis Hall last night, was nothing short of a disgrace. But no, he's got to be on the list of Eddie's must-haves when it comes to thinking about who he wants to keep, and that means a new contract. And I don't mind admitting you've probably all heard me waxing lyrical about young Lewis Bailey since the moment he stepped on the pitch. Within a couple of games, 3 or 4 games, I was saying if he gets an extra yard of pace, he's going to be not a good player, but a fantastic player. Well, that's what's happened. I mean, they've bulked him up, so he's still got his baby face, but his body's not baby. A couple of times the winger tried to push him off the ball last night while he was wasting his time because he was going nowhere. The other thing I liked about him last night was that that's a tricky little winger who's caused all sorts of people monumental problems and scored goals and all the rest of it. Well, for the first 10 minutes, he give Lewis a bit of a run around. But once Lewis had his measure, he was able to force him backwards or inside or whatever. There was a very old head on those young shoulders. So if Newcastle United don't make a very, very long contract, a lucrative contract for that young man by the end of the season, I'd be very disappointed as well. I'll go a little bit further. If Tuchel's anywhere near, or he's listening to what people are talking about, I would not be surprised if he leapfrogged over some of the people who think they're going to the World Cup, because with a versatile player like him, who's the sort of player that Tuchel likes, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Lewis Bailey didn't leapfrog into the World Cup squad. So, that's short answer to your question is, yes, please, God, get these kids on contracts. We need them. I mean, you're right. The premise is that's the thick end of our defence and possibly midfield for the next 10 years, looked after. It doesn't come any better than that. We couldn't buy better than that. That's the important thing.
Barry says, George, I know you're Mr. Positivity regarding the tune, but for me, that's the Carabao Cup gone. We will really struggle away to Villa in the FA Cup, leaving only the league. Surely the owners will invest now.
Oh, I would hope the owners would invest anyway, Barry. I agree that after last night, it's a tough ask. I mean, we rarely win it at the Etihad, or Etihad, sorry. It's sorry to digress, but you've got a team who for the last 10 years has dominated English, European, and in some instances world football. And they couldn't sell all their tickets for last night's game. They can't fill their stadium. What the devil do those people want? Is it because they've got the red rubbish across the road from them? I don't know, but I couldn't believe that they had sent tickets back for last night's game. Quite disappointing. And I think as to the return game, the return game for me is miracle time. But who knows? Somebody might just get that first goal, and 2-1 even there would look even better. And 2-2 and penalties I would enjoy. But I have to agree with you, Barry. It's a huge ask. It's a huge ask. Aston Villa. Well, we have beaten Villa, and beaten Villa thoroughly at Villa Park. And if the right Newcastle United side turns up, why can't we do it again? And with the FA Cup being a one-off, you know, they know the import of it. But then again, taking your point, it's not going to be easy. It's a huge ask away from home anyway. If we were playing well, it would be. But I think we're confident. I'm confident enough we'll give it a go.
Lee Jones, good evening. He says, George, after watching both Pope and Trafford last night, which one would you like as number one next season, or do we need somebody better than both of them?
I think I've said since we had the run of goals with the games with our standing goalkeeper. Oh, come on. Who was in goal the other night? Ramsdale. Sorry, I couldn't get it to spit the name out. Once I'd seen Ramsdale for a few games and Pope, I was already saying then we need a new goalkeeper by the summer. And God, please God, it's not Trafford, because I saw nothing last night to make me think that there's a world-class keeper that we need. I mean, his kicking was atrocious. He's kicking off the island like Pope does, and some of his decision making with his defenders was very iffy. He made one really top-class save when he pushed the ball onto the bar from a header that was definitely going in. But apart from that, he did nothing to impress me at all. In fact, he was very lucky with some of the way he dallied on the ball. That a couple of times Wissa and certainly Valdemar in the second half came very close to taking the ball off his toe end. Well, sooner or later, somebody will do that. So the short answer is yes. I'm not too happy about the two we've got, and please God, we don't replace him with the one that was in the other end last night, because I don't rate him very much either.
Okay, Paul says Trafford's kicking was pretty good. Trafford showed our fan base what he could do last night. We need to swallow our pride and get the lad, says Benny. So, yeah, it's all about opinions. And Davey says, in fairness, even though Voltemada and Wissa were off the pace, Haaland didn't get a sniff either. So a bit of kudos to Chow and Botman. Yeah, Botman did play well last night, and I'm not a Botman fan.
Well, in fairness, you look at the last few games, Haaland's never done very well against our centre-backs. You know, going back even to Lascelles. Lascelles had a couple of games where Haaland didn't get a sniff. And he certainly didn't get a sniff last night. You know, the two handled him. And, he wasn't the threat that people possibly would have expected.
No, problem is when you man mark Haaland, or you spend a lot of time concentrating on Haaland. Teams like Manchester City have so many great players, other than him. And I've got to say, before we go to the ad break, credit to the two wingers. Semenyo looks like he's played there for weeks, never mind a couple of days. And Doku is just getting better and better as time goes on. And special mention to Shirky as well, who pulled off that. I think you mentioned it before. Just a wonderful piece of skill to completely bypass our defenders and then to be in the right place just to slot the ball home from the cross. To make it 2-0. Listen, that's what you get for the money. That's what you get for the money that you spend, and being allowed to spend it, of course.
Well, that's the other side of it. Is that Semenyo comes up for sale and bang, they buy him. I wish we were only in the same position. We perhaps could have done, but our necessities at the moment are maybe regarded as slightly different. But yes, that's what we're up against, and we have to keep plugging away until we get on a level playing field.
And fair play as well. I mean, it was noticeable last night. Eddie Howe often, takes turns with Jason Tyndall in and out of the dugout. Usually seeing barking instructions, but he was visibly annoyed a couple of times last night and made his point quite clear with the likes of Anthony Gordon, Wissa. In particular, Ramsey, I think, argued the toss with him at one point, like Beresford and Keegan. Claiming his innocence. So we saw quite an animated Eddie Howe last night. The mask slipped a little bit, really, from my perspective. And I liked it. I liked seeing that because it shows that he cares. He is trying to make a difference. I mean, again, we're going into the ads, but I just genuinely felt that, no matter what team we put out last night, no matter what team Eddie picked, we could have all picked a team last night. It would have been a different right back, or a different centre forward, or a different midfield lineup. But I think the fact that we played 120 minutes plus penalties at the weekend was always going to affect us last night.
And the previous difficult game as well. I mean, the previous game wasn't easy either. The game against Leeds was full on, and then you have the 120 minutes to follow. Then this against Manchester City of all teams. No, that was always going to be a difficult ask for our squad.
I think a fully fit squad with Dan Burn and, with Tino Livramento and Fabian Schär available, and, having every single option, including Asula up front, because Asula gives you a different dimension. I think that Newcastle would be in a better position. And I think there has to be that kind of, you just have to realize that, things don't work like that in football. And ultimately that Newcastle United gave their best last night. And let's hark back to the banner. All we want is a team that tries. That is essentially not what we want. We want to win trophies and we want to do this. But at the end of the day, the lads didn't give in last night. Lewis Hall epitomised.
Even I've had minor criticism of a couple of the players, but I'm not saying that they didn't try. They tried their legs off. I mean, there's parts of the game where Wissa run his legs off running down Trafford and running down defenders. So no, I would never accuse any of them last night of not giving 100%, because I thought they give their all, quite frankly.
Yeah, and Benny, just before the ads, does anyone think that Riley should have been sent off for his push? I mean, I watched it back today, and the commentator said that the VAR deemed that not to be violent conduct. It was handbags, Benny. That's basically what it was. And Joe Linton's push back probably cancelled out Riley's push back at him. So
well, I put that down to the referee. They were niggling at Joe Linton the whole match.
Yeah,
obviously winding him up. And I think a quiet word from the referee, or even the threat of a card early on, could have quelled a lot of things, which later on ended up to be, it ended up with nearly fisticuffs because he didn't do that.
Yeah, always the same. Consistency in referees, that's for another day. Okay, quick ad break. Back after this. A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at their website, skipsandbins.com. Contact them, www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. Big thanks to Media Arts for all the technical side of things. And a thanks to our fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel. UK coach holidays established 2020. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. 2026 tours, 2 crew, driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels, no interchanges, hot and cold snacks and drinks available on the coach, all excursions included. Website www.unitedgrouptravel.com, email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com, telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. Just £30 per person deposit. Big welcome to GC Competitions, a new sponsor. A day none of us will forget. This is your chance to win this stunning Newcastle United signed Carabao Cup final winners display with replica medal. For only $1.99 a ticket, you can be the proud owner of this piece of Toon history. The draw will take place on Sunday the 18th of January. Don't miss out. Get your tickets now at www.gccompetitions.co.uk. If you want to support the channel, you can hit the subscribe button. It's free. We do 7 shows a week. Hit the thumb up to like the channel and click share to your social media. If you like to listen to us as a podcast, you can find us on Sports Social Podcast Network or iTunes or Spotify or other podcast providers. Okay, welcome back to NUFC Matters. It is We've got plenty of questions to be getting on with tonight, and thank you to everybody who has sent them in. Let's go to Blue Rhythm Boy again. He says, is George worried by Wiss's injury? Given his age, he looks off the pace. I saw Eddie shouting at him to the press and used expletives to express the lack of intensity from him.
Well, any really bad injury, especially because he doesn't have a history of injuries. That's the other sad thing, is that for him to get that injury when he did, it wasn't as though he was a player that had injury. For example, like Wilson, every other 6 months, he's off for a month with an injury. Wiss has never had that, so it is worrying. But on the other hand, he's had we've had time with working with the Congo team, doctors and our own doctors to make sure we get it right. And it may just be that it's minutes on the pitch he needs as much as anything, because there's nothing like game time to bring the best out in players. And I know he'd be training like mad along at Benton at the training ground, but there's nothing like minutes playing to get the thing sorted out. So long term, I'm not too worried. I think he just needs a period of settling down and a bit more game time, maybe.
Okay, next question. Steve, George, how do you feel about the Botman extension? I think he will get back to his best given time. Yes, Sven Botman finally tying himself to Newcastle United again, George.
Yes, I couldn't be happier. He's a young man, and we've seen his talent, and it's starting to shine through again. He wasn't that flustered last night against Haaland or anybody else that came his way. So I'm delighted with that. That's again a good young guy who, along with we've got Tino, we've got Hall, we've got Chow, we've got Botman. They're all filling in for people who are going to disappear shortly, like Trippier. Dan Burn's not going to last forever, and Shaw's not going to last forever. So we've got ready placements to slot in, and Botman's one of them. And he's a real star when he's on form. He strolls through the game for me, not worried at all. So yeah, I couldn't be happier about that.
Alan Thompson says, George, do you think we'll win the league in the next 10 years?
In the next 10 years? Well, I would say I'd be disappointed if we didn't. However, I was listening to Simon Jordan yesterday morning on Talk Sport when they went down the list of the teams at the top 7 about who might win the league. And when he came to Newcastle United, he said, they'll never win the league. That's what he said. And they'll never win the league because the league's tilted so that they'll never be able in a position to win the league, never be able to buy the players. And that's Simon Jordan. He's not a fan, but he's been very brutally honest. And I think that's the hurdle we've got to jump. Decide, do we trot along with this setup that we've got now and having to spend only what the top 6 would like us to spend, or do we actually do something about it? And I think if it becomes clear and obvious that we're not going to be able to break into that top 6, then I think our owners might do something about it legally, because we're clearly being got at unfairly, in my view, as has been my view since PSR started and before, especially when they brought out the Newcastle rules. I was amazed they didn't do something about that. But and I think as time goes on, there are more and more clubs feeling the same. People like Villa, Everton, Forest, who could be persuaded to go against the top 6. So the short answer to your question is yes, I do think we'll win the league in the next 10 years. But it'll be hard work unless we do something about breaking that group of people at the top who seem to be manipulating everything.
Stuart Ovington is watching us on Facebook. Thanks very much for joining us, mate. He says, do you think Dan Burn will go straight back into the team when fit, George? I think we really miss his aerial power at the back.
Well, suppose I'm repeating what I've repeated obviously on here. I see more in Dan Burn than just his aerial power. If you look carefully at games where he's there, he never shuts up. He's organising the youngsters. He's doing this. He's doing that. He's a very busy player, and he does more than just be a centre back with great heading ability. So I think unless the others are playing extremely well, it would not take long for Dan Burn to get back and cement a place in our team. Don't forget, I mean, what I'm saying is what the England manager says of them. Thomas Tuchel picked him because he said he didn't just see Dan Burn the football. He saw Dan Burn the leader. That off the pitch and on the training ground, Dan Burn was a leader. He, was a great guide to the younger ones. So I'd like to see that back on the pitch for Newcastle United, and he would never let us down. That's for sure.
Good evening to Michael Bull, also watching on Facebook. He says, do you think VAR should be scrapped, George, as it's obviously not working? And Michael had also asked earlier, what do you think about the VAR decision last night? It actually took, and the time it took to make the decision, it's ruining the game, he says.
Well, absolutely right. I mean, let's be honest. I'm basically a football fan, and that was a goal for me. I know it wasn't for our side, it was for the opponents, but that was a goal. If it took them 4 minutes at Stockley Park to look at that picture and still couldn't decide, it's a goal, as far as I'm concerned. And then they made the referee go and look at the screen across the pitch to let him have another look at it. And he came back and said, and we all know that once they send him to the screen, he's going to feel like Stockley Park saying, change your mind, because that's what happens. And it was just an absolute shambles. And there's an element, and I hate to use the word, there's an element of things not being right, almost corrupt, I'm afraid. And that's me saying it, not the channel or Steve Ray or anybody else. That's me saying it. Because look at all the other sports that have this sort of system. Cricket, rugby league, tennis. When the referee talks to the people in the box, you don't just hear what they're saying. You see the pictures he's asking to look at. In the best ones are the rugby league. They'll say, can I see this angle? Can I see that angle? Can I see? We see none of that. All that's private conversation between the referee and whoever's sitting in the box at Stockley Park. Now, I think that's wrong. The supporters, should hear all of that, so that audio stuff is in our domain as well, and the pictures they're seeing as well, because there's the ability there to show them. And certainly at Magic Weekend at Rugby League at St James's Park, that's one bit of it I love, because on that big screen, and then they have an even bigger screen put in when they're there, and you see all the angles that the referee gets. I mean, it's just incredible. And backing that up, a couple of years ago against Palace, the Palace fullback Mitchell pushed our right winger in the back, and that they didn't even look at that angle apparently, yet it was available because it was shown 2 days afterwards. So I think I divide the system away from the people operating it. I think the system's operable, like the goal line technology's 100% now virtually. The new offside line seems to work reasonably well, although they made a hash of it last night. But the one thing that sticks out of football as other sports is it's not transparent. It's not transparent enough. We should hear what they're saying, and we don't. And I want to know why. Why can't we hear what they're saying? They certainly do in rugby. You hear the referee talk to the control box, the television referee, and vice versa. And same in the cricket. They hear the umpire talking to the umpire on the pitch. They're not perfect, but they're certainly not better than football is. The number of people who find VAR turn off is increasing, including me. I mean, last night's 4 minutes was, give a goal for God's sake. If it's that hard, it's got to be a goal, even though it wasn't for my team. And I just think it's if it's if they're not careful, there'll be such a furore. And now one or two managers are getting even more vocal. I mean, Sean Dyche, I mean, some of his comments recently, and one or two others. And last night, of course, Pep Guardiola going all the way back to last year, saying that never get a fair shake here at Newcastle because last year Shaw should have given a penalty away and VAR didn't even look at it. Now, you know, it's once the upper echelon of managers start pulling it to bits, I think it's in danger. But it's atrocious at the moment. It's nearly spoiling the game, very nearly.
Just want to talk a little bit about Andy Kerr, who's like a well-respected sports reporter. His tweet today, or last night, sorry, after the match, I had to agree with. He said, I can't remember St James's Park feeling so flat on a big occasion. That energy from games like Arsenal in the semi-final last year, or even the Liverpool or Barcelona games this season just wasn't there. What did you think of the atmosphere last night, George?
Not as good as it has been. I mean, you couldn't compare it with one of the big game atmospheres, which I was hoping we would have. There was the odd occasion when it got a bit louder, but it wasn't as it wasn't as fierce as say PSG, Barcelona, that sort of level. Just wasn't there, or even Arsenal last time, because we really rocked the place against Arsenal in the last semi-final. So I tend to agree it was a bit quiet.
Yeah, I would agree as well. Okay, next question. Do you think the club will announce the news of our rumoured new training ground this season, says Golf and Geordie?
Well, it's nearly there, isn't it? If all the rumours that's flying about on social media at the moment are only half right, they're going to have to either say yes or no. And I think they will come out very shortly and say, this is what we're doing and these are the plans. I mean, there's so many bits and pieces out now that they seem to be well informed whoever's doing it. And certainly the one thing the club can't deny is that they own the ground. They've bought that ground. So there can only be one reason that they bought the ground. So I'd be amazed if they don't announce it before the end of the season.
Yeah, it seems to be so much smoke, and usually when you've got that much smoke, something comes out. So it will be interesting to see. Have you seen the alleged plans, George? And if you have, what did you think of them? Says John.
Well, it looks great. I mean, but it's got to be world class, hasn't it? I mean, they want this club to be number one. Well, the facilities have got to be number one as well, and that means that they're going to produce something that's going to be world class, and with not just training facilities but medical facilities and the sort of things that we've not had. You know, the days of having an ice bath in a wheelie bin with Ashley's are long gone, thank God. So they will produce something that's out of this world. I'm convinced of that. The one thing about PIF and Saudi people, basically, they don't like second best. They don't like half measures. I mean, the improvements they've made at Benton already have made Benton a much better place. But to start from scratch and build it new, it will be world class, is my view.
George, which game's more important, Wolves this weekend or the Manchester City second leg?
Oh my goodness. That's a difficult question for the greedy little duck because I want to win them all. Be brutally honest. I'd like us to see a good win at a league game away from home, and that's got to be Wolves because that would make a statement, and would do no harm for Manchester City either, because it would warm up for the return at City later on. But so I'm not going to backtrack. I think a good win away from home would do a power of good in the club and on the pitch, and make our league table look even better. Because remember, this next couple of weeks we've got some desperate games, most of them away from home. So we've got to pull some form from somewhere. So let's Wolves be the start of it.
Yeah, I would say that you take one game at a time. Still, that's
Yeah,
basically where we're
absolutely.
at the moment. We've just got to take one game at a time, and the game against Man City could be a completely different game. And I've said this on social media. A month we don't play Man City for a month. Newcastle hopefully will have players back. Won't be as beset with injuries. Of course, it could be the complete polar opposite. And we might have signed Harry Kane by then, who will be eligible to play in the game, of course. So we will wait and see. Yes, that was tongue in cheek, viewers. Was George encouraged that despite our restrictions, we pretty much matched City all the way apart from the onion bag?
Well, yes, I am encouraged. I mean, I've been saying for a while that whoever we play, wherever they're from, if the right Newcastle United turns up, we'll give them a game and we can actually beat them. And we've done it time and again. Last year's the Carabao Cup last year, we had to beat them all, didn't we? We had to beat City, we had to beat Arsenal, we had to beat Liverpool. All of those had to go by the board for us to win that cup, and we didn't do that lightly. It was all from really good football play. So I'm always encouraged that when Eddie prepares a team against whoever it is, we can make a fist of it. We can give them a game. What we need is to build a squad that could give Eddie even more ammunition to send out on the field. But yeah, to see the way the team took on Manchester City last night, one of the top club sides in the world, never mind in the UK. We didn't disgrace ourselves. In fact, take our chances, it would have been a different game.
Yeah, I think it's always hard to be positive after a defeat, especially one in a semi-final. But it's not over. Just remember, it's not over. It's going to be a mountain to climb. We know it's going to be a mountain to climb. This isn't a happy clapping episode where we're trying to say that everything's going to be all right. But funny things happen in football. There's a month to go. God knows where we'll be in a month. We could be on the crest of a slump. We could be on the crest of a high. But we'll just take one game at a time. Does George think Miley is a future England captain? Says Barry.
Oh wow, Barry. I mean, to be brutally honest, yes. There's a maturity in him now, where he's not out of place when he's again playing with all these highly paid professionals who are his teammates, and some of the ones he's playing against. It doesn't affront him at all to be up and at it, and he's not frightened to say what he thinks either. So I wouldn't surprise me in the least that if he keeps developing the way he is, that he isn't touted for an England captain sometime in the future. As I keep saying, I go back to my comparison. Comparison I make is Duncan Edwards of Manchester United. And Lewis Miley's as near as Duncan Edwards as I've ever seen since Duncan Edwards passed away in the Munich disaster. And before that, he was exactly like Miley. Play anywhere, score goals, head goals, and organise things. And I see that Lewis Miley doing that. And then the more I see him playing for us, he's already starting to do it for us.
Yeah. I mean, it's great to see, Lewis Miley's progress. I just think we have to be careful about bigging up players too far and too quickly, too soon. There's signs of development there. We've seen it in front of our eyes, but that's what we need to do. We just need to make sure that we keep his feet on the ground and he keeps his feet on the ground. That's the big thing. Do you think we'll see the best of Voltemada at Newcastle, George? His ceiling is as high as anyone in the world for me, but not sure we'll see it here. He needs the right environment.
Well, obviously, the more work they do with him, the better he'll get for us. It's worth remembering, 3 months ago, a little bit more, the Germans didn't think they had a chance in the World Cup. They'd virtually given up any thought of World Cup. And suddenly, their under-23 centre-forward starts scoring goals. And suddenly now, because he's starting to score goals for the first team, they don't just think they've got a chance. They think they've got a chance to win the World Cup, and that's all because of Voltemada. It's amazing. If you bother to find YouTube of the games he plays with Germany, they quite clearly set the team up to play with him. Now we Eddie sets the team up to play what he wants for Newcastle United. But I understand, and I could be miles away from it, that again, Dave Jones, who works with the striker, every day spends time with Voltemada doing certain things, and like I said, they're teaching him about diagonal runs and this sort of thing. But some of the goals he scores for Germany, our fans say, well, he's deep, but the number of goals he scores from the deep playing for Germany is incredible. So maybe another month or two before we see the finished article, or even the end of the season before we see the finished article. But once you've got the finished article, I think Nick Voltemada is going to become a big Tyneside hero, certain of it. And he's such a nice guy as well. I mean, there's no getting away from that, you can see. And well liked in the dressing room, no doubt about it.
Barry says, George, people are saying Joe Linton's aggression is taking over his role in the team. I can see him leaving for Saudi in the summer. What do you think? What do you think about his aggression, Joe Linton? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing?
Well, I've got to be honest. I'm glad to see a little bit of it back, because for 2 or 3 games ago we were missing it. We were being bossed, and when he's on the pitch, that's less likely to happen, because he's going to interfere quite distinctively against opponents. So I'm quite happy to see his aggression. Whether he'll move to Saudi Arabia is another matter. I think that's all about money. If the money's right, he'll be gone. I think. But the bit about the aggression that I think we need to watch is the way teams know he's there. Teams know what he's like, and like last night, from the minute we kicked off, the Manchester midfield were having a niggle at him from the start. Their mouths were going. They were pulling shirts when they didn't need to. And he was going for throw-ins. They were over the top of him. They were up his back and kicking round him and all the rest of it. I mean, the number of times he must have been kicked last night before he eventually exploded. So that's the bit he's got to be careful of, is the retaliation. Also, the game against Leeds, when the referee kept having to go to get batteries or whatever it was for his microphone, there was one time that the referee was getting his batteries done, and standing behind him, you could see Joe Linton mouthing off. And then to finish the linesman had to chase him. So that's another Marie's aggression he could do without. On the other hand, it might give the referees a leg up. But I think, hand on heart, that we've benefited a bit from his aggression in the last couple of games.
I did laugh at this. Does George think Pep's tapping up the likes of Tino and Hall? He's all over them like a cheap coat when he comes to St James's Park. There's a great little clip of off the TV last night of Pep trying to. He's putting his hand out for Hall to tap his hand, and Hall just puts his hand into his body. It's a brilliant little.
Just ignores him. Yes. Well, yeah, and there's not just Tino and Hall. The last time they were here, he hugged Bruno so hard and whispered in his ear. I would love to know what that conversation was about. I mean, it was so long. It wasn't just a well done. It was more than that, much more than that. So yeah, and he's canny. Pep, he's and at the end of the day, he's the sort of bloke who wears his heart on his sleeve, because he would come out and say it publicly. He wouldn't think twice about it. Whereas had all this nonsense at Wembley with Van Dijk and the other bloke whispering in each other's ears, and now all the conjecture is, what were they saying? I can live with Pep doing it, but there's some others that I wouldn't want to happen.
That hour has flown over. It always does when I'm in the company of George. Thank you to everybody for the questions. You've kept them coming on a regular basis there tonight, and I think we've
Thank
covered
you.
a multitude of topics, and hopefully made a few people feel a little bit better. Although it's up to Eddie Howe and the boys to do that. We can only cheer you up with a bit of banter. We are back tomorrow night. Me, Supermac, and Gibbo will be live at 6 o'clock, and the Amigos. As long as I am not stuck on a train, will go ahead on Friday night at 5 o'clock. If I am stuck on a train, the lads might have to run the show. I'll be able to start it remotely, but that will be it. And anyone who tuned into last night's show, the Q&A that I did, thanks for joining us. If you haven't watched it yet, and then you realise that Rob's bit has been edited out, Rob didn't do a Jeff. What Rob did, unfortunately, was he had a copyrighted video playing in the background, which isn't allowed. So I had to remove that. So my first two podcasts this week, I've had to edit stuff out of them, which isn't the norm. So if you are watching on Catch Up, the Fans Forum, and then Steve Rate live Q&A last night, there has been a little bit of editing, but rest assured, Rob didn't do anything wrong. And yeah, big shout out to the young lad, Joni's guitar. What a moment for him. That was great last night.
Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, I was glad to see that. Yeah.
Great
Absolutely super. And thank you, everybody. I do appreciate it that you trouble yourselves to come and listen to my waffle, and you don't know how much I enjoy it. I really do. And how are the lads? We'll get it right sometime.
Don't forget, folks, when this video finishes, when this live finishes, you can hype the video. Just take your time to find this video. You'll see the hype button come up under some of the videos that we've done. Just hype them. Apparently that helps. Anyway, see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.